Welcome back to Sports Hop. It is all the way official. We are live from Olympic Centennial Park in Atlanta, Georgia, home of Super Bowl 53, the New England Patriots versus you know who, those LA Rams. I've got a very special guest in the building today. Mr. Leland Melvin is in the building. Leland, we all know, and for those who don't know, you do have an extensive background not only in football but in aerospace as well. Let's talk about football first. How did you get involved? What inspired you? Tell us your story.
So, high school homecoming game, dropped a touchdown in the end zone, went to the sideline, waited to be benched, but my coach said, "I believe in you. Go back out there, catch the ball." This time I caught it. The crowd was screaming. A scout from the University of Richmond saw me in the end zone do a little dance. He said, "Maybe this guy can play for us." He didn't give up. That one catch resulted in a $180,000 scholarship to the University of Richmond. And long story short, we didn't do well at the beginning of my season there, but we ended up going to the playoffs my senior year, and that brought the professional scouts down. Detroit Lions saw me and said, "We want to draft this guy." So 11th round draft choice in 1986 out of Richmond, pulled a hamstring second week in training camp, started grad school at the University of Virginia in materials science engineering, then went to the Dallas Cowboys as a free agent. So I'm catching footballs for America's team by day. Yeah. At night I'm watching material science engineering courses. Went out with Danny White one morning and pulled the hamstring for the second time. That was the end of my football career. But I had my education to fall back on.
Speaking of education, for those watching the show, let's talk about the value of education for the youth and how significant it is, because life takes twists and turns unexpectedly. Let's talk about that, how that resonated with you in terms of focusing on your education in addition to your athletic talent.
Well, I've always loved both sports and science and math. My mom gave me a chemistry set when I was a little kid, and it was age inappropriate, non-OSHA certified, and I blew her living room up. And so I saw the power of science right there. So I knew that I could do both. And in school, I played sports, but also focused on my academics, because you never know when something's going to happen. And to have that backup plan for education is critical. Like what we're doing right here now. We were both athletes, we both played football, but we're able to do different things with our lives, to sustain ourselves. And so that education piece is critical.
And speaking of football, do you have a particular team that you're interested in? Do you still follow the game? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So my favorite sport is actually tennis. I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, 5 blocks down the street from where Arthur Ashe and Althea Gibson were trained by Dr. Whirlwind Johnson, who was the first black doctor who integrated the hospital that I was born in. Wow. So I learned about tennis before anything else. Now, football paid the bills. I like to watch Super Bowl. I'm probably pulling for the Rams, LA. But tennis is more of my love, because I started playing that very, very early.
And how good of a tennis player are you?
I think I'm still probably a 4.0, 4.5 tennis player. I still play, stroke it out, hit it.
Okay. You look like you got a nasty serve on you with those arms.
American twist,
So let's talk about life after football and how you facilitated yourself in a position with NASA, and you actually got to the moon. Tell me about that experience and what was that about?
Yeah, so when I pulled the hamstring at the Dallas Cowboys, I just went right back to graduate school, finished my master's degree in materials science engineering, and I was hired by NASA Langley Research Center to do research in fiber optic sensors. And a friend of mine said, "Leland, you'd be a great astronaut." He handed me an application. I looked at it, did fill it out, and then one of my boys, who I work with, he filled the application out. He got in. So I said to myself, if NASA's let a knucklehead like that in to be an astronaut, I could be one too.
Right.
So I applied the next selection and I got in. And I didn't really know a lot about the program, but we're flying jets, we're doing land survival training, water survival training, all these things to get you ready to fly in space. And I flew in space in 2008 and 2009 on Space Shuttle Atlantis. Went to the International Space Station, installed a multi-billion-dollar Columbus laboratory with the robotic arm. And on my second mission, I was with Dr. Bobby Satcher, we were the first 2 African-American men in space at the same time. Tom Joyner interviewed us in space. Sybil said, "Look at them, they go to Afronauts." So we got the name Afronauts by being in space as the first 2 black men.
Were you rocking a fro at the time?
I was rocking this.
Hey, shout out to the folks that's losing their hair or rocking a bald head. Ain't nothing wrong with it. So tell me about your experience in space. How did it feel? Were you afraid? Were you scared? Tell me how that all came about in terms of your demeanor and how you handled that.
So football, teaches you to have calm under pressure. Hundreds of thousands of people out there watching this game, and you've got to be focused and to tune all of that other stuff out. So 3, 2, 1, liftoff, you're launching. All this noise, all these sounds, all these things, you got to stay focused on your task at hand. 8.5 minutes later, the engine's cut off. The things that you dropped around you are now floating up by you, but you're still strapped in. You undo your seatbelt, you float over to the window, and you see the planet as you go around it at 17,500 miles per hour. You see a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes as you go around the planet every 90 minutes. It was incredible. And the work ethic that you have as an athlete pays off because you do have the same work ethic in space. And you have to do the task, you got timelines, you got to get your mission, the mission accomplished. On the field is the win. And space is getting all the mission objectives done on time so that everyone's safe. And that's what we did. Seeing the planet from space, the colors of the ocean, you almost need new definitions of blue to describe the colors. Azure, indigo, navy blue, turquoise. I mean, it doesn't do anything for what you see with your eyes. And then you don't see any borders. We're flying over the Middle East, and you know that there's all kinds of stuff going on down there. Right. But from space, it's just so beautiful. And I was in space with African American, Asian American, French, German, Russian, the first female commander, all breaking bread together while listening to Sade Smooth Operator.
Shout out to Sade, by the way. That's one of my favorite artists. Tell me about a typical meal in the day of the life of Leland when you were in space. What did you eat? How did that taste? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the food is rehydrated, so it's dried. You add the recommended amount of water to it. You put it in a little heater. So we had green beans with almonds. We had turkey tetrazzini. We had like meals ready to eat. You have like a chicken patty that has kind of juices in it, and so you would just cut the foil and eat the chicken patty. Actually, I was in space for Thanksgiving, so we had the rehydrated turkey, rehydrated stuffing, and the rolls weren't like Mama's rolls, Oh, no. Oh, no. But it's we have chocolate pudding cake, the things that are really moist and kind of gooey, the things that kind of stick to your spoon and you don't have to worry about them flying off somewhere and getting in someone's eye.
Right.
We have shrimp cocktail. Lots of times in space, people's taste buds get desensitized, so people like to have a lot of spicy stuff. So if you look at the pictures of us in space, there's always a jar of hot sauce, a bottle of hot sauce right over there with Velcro and it's sitting on the table that you can just squirt into your food to make it more tasty.
And what were your sleeping patterns like? Did you sleep more? Did you sleep less? Were you floating around while sleeping at the same time?
In space, they monitor our sleep with this thing called an ActiWatch because they want to know how well we're sleeping. And they monitor you a month before, during, and a month after. I average 5.5 hours of sleep every night, month before, during, and after. And some people can't sleep in space because they're nervous or whatever. So some people, we have to medicate them a little bit to get them down. But I floated in my sleeping bag. I felt very comfortable in space.
Yeah.
It was really good sleeping environment for me.
And how long were you in space? I know you went 2008 and 2009. What was the total time that you were up there?
A total of 24 days that I was in space, around those two missions. Yeah.
Let's talk about life after your mission to Mars and what you're currently doing associated with NASA and the program.
Well, I'm here helping support the Kennedy Space Center, the visitor complex. They built this rover back here. It's called the Martian Rover Vehicle Navigator. And one of the things that we want to help kids do is to let them see themselves being part of this next generation of explorers. We have a person like me who wanted to be Arthur Ashe and not a Neil or Buzz Aldrin who walked on the moon, because they see people like me now that are flying and working in space. So help them develop to be scientists and engineers, artists, whatever they want to be, but let them be inspired by the allure of the Martian surface or the lunar surface or people working and living in space. And so I go around the country helping inspire that next generation. I work with organizations like NASA, the Visitor Complex, to ensure that they are looking forward to helping include everyone in the solutions that we have for today.
If you had one word of advice to the youth that are watching the show, what would that be?
The thing is, no matter what you do in your life, you're going to have setbacks. I lost my hearing, I pulled a hamstring, I've had lots of things happen to me. But the one thing that kept me going was I had people that believed in me. Find that one person that believes in you, that has your back, and then stay diligent, persevere, and work hard, and you can do or be anything you put your mind to.
We are live from Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, Georgia, with the legendary Leland Melvin in the building. Don't you go nowhere. It's Sports Hop.